Hey guys, what's going on? So this is obviously a very different video. Obviously there's not going to be any gameplay in this video. And this, even though that this is specifically about Rush Royale, it's more about me, the content creator, than it is about Rush Royale, the game. It is about the game, obviously, but this is also about me, the content creator. So I haven't posted a lot. I haven't done a lot of lives. And I kind of wanted to address that even though nobody has asked me. In the time that I was not posting or I wasn't doing lives, I was doing lives pretty consistently, like every other day at a certain point, and they were really fun and they were engaging and exciting. And I started my own clan and I was posting videos, and then all of a sudden all of that just stopped. Nobody asked me about it. Nobody wrote a comment saying like, "Where's your content?" Nobody wrote a comment about like, when's your next live? And part of me that was refreshing. Part of that's refreshing as a content creator, like that people aren't specifically forcing you to make content. But at the same time, it was also a little sad that like nobody asked. Like nobody asked. I have like 2,000 subscribers. Nobody asked. Nobody made a comment about any of that. And you would think that there would be at least one person or something. But at the same time, again, like if people were always hounding me, like, oh, when's your next video? When's your next video? When's your next video? That would also be annoying. But I haven't made content for a little while, mostly because of the state of the game. And that's what I want to talk about. And in true fashion of my channel, I want to talk at length about the state of the game, and I want to talk about like conceptual ideas, and I want to talk about being a content creator for this game, specifically with the kind of content that I make. And it's the way that this game has slowly progressed into being specifically just about event units, and how they've gotten rid of any kind of regular legendary unit to be as good as an event unit. And this was something that I feared a long time ago, and it was basically around the Corsair change. I made a video about that this game is becoming pay to win, and then they changed that idea that I had for it being a pay to win game by allowing people that are 1K crit or less to be at 7K trophies or more. And there's a lot of ideas that they changed a lot of this game to be something else. The reason why I haven't done a lot of videos is one, because they haven't really updated the game with anything. They've changed small things that I don't think matter. So they did a balance change in 26.1 with Bruiser, Riding Hood, Treant, Inquisitor, Knight Statue, and part of me was like, oh, okay, I want to talk about this. Like, this is exciting. 26.0, they haven't done any updates, so I didn't do a 26.0 tier list. I liked being the tier list guy. 26.0, they didn't add anything. They didn't change anything. There were no balance changes. And so I didn't feel the need to do a tier list. They added death waves, which was the biggest thing. And then in 26.1, they were going to do balance changes on those units. And I was excited to do a tier list for that until I realized that nothing changed. Everything is still basically the same. They nerfed Treant. If you go into the leaderboard, into the top 100 people in this game, and look at what deck they're playing, they're all playing Treant decks. So they nerfed Treant, and it doesn't matter. All of those balance changes did not do anything to affect the game, and it did not do anything to affect a tier list. I could create a tier list, but it would essentially be the tier list that I've already created with Treant. It would be the exact same tier list because nothing changed. And essentially, if you don't understand how nothing changed, it would be like if they changed Zealot. And they, instead of base damage 100 damage, it is now 105 damage. That's basically how the tier list changed, or the balance changes felt to me. Yes, that is a change, but does that make Zealot any better? Does that make Zealot any worse? Does it change the tier list position of a Zealot? Even though that is a balance change, and even though it is now more or less in some cases, does that change anything? And the answer is no. After they did the Corsair change, and they changed percentage damage, that was in a long stream of tier lists that I did. And they were fun to do because the game consistently kept changing. There was a point where Inquisitor Portal Keeper was the meta, and they had to change Inquisitor, and they had to change Portal Keeper's functionality because it was too good, right? And then the Demon Hunter became the meta, and everybody was running the Demon Hunter deck, and they had to change the functionality of how Demon Hunter works. Changing Treant's damage from being like a 1% to a 0.5%, or changing Riding Hood's damage from being a 0.2% to a 0.3% is not going to do anything. Yes, it's a change, but it's not going to do anything. When they changed Corsair's percentage damage to just completely revamping the unit, that is how that was a nerf. Because at that point in the game, that was like the glory day of this game. I feel like if there was a glory day of this game, it would be when the Corsair meta was a meta. Corsair was such a random card for people to invest in, and it worked when when the infinite co-op was a thing. That was one of the strategies for infinite co-op, and so some people maxed out their Corsair. But then when that wasn't really a thing, Corsair wasn't really a deck. And then people realized Banshee is in this game, and you can neutralize with Banshee's Wail, you can neutralize bosses, and then you can utilize the Corsair's bombs to kill a boss. And that's how that started working. That's how that started rolling. And it got to a point where major decks were forced to run Frost to use the Ice Walk to get rid of Corsair bombs to defeat a Corsair infinite damage deck. It was when the infinite damage meta was meta. And it was Corsair was really good, Minotaur, Meteor were really good, but at the same time, event units were still good. But they also had to account for the fact that sometimes they would go up against a Corsair infinite damage deck. The most healthy version of this game, I feel, is it's a rock paper scissors kind of like way of deck building. You can have like an infinite damage Corsair deck, and that will beat like a Riding Hood deck, right? Because Riding Hood can't do infinite damage forever, and so a Riding Hood deck will have to slot out a unit that they would normally use for a Frost in order to be able to compete against a Corsair deck. But they're not going to face Corsair decks all the time, so that technically makes their deck weaker against a Riding Hood deck that is not using a Frost, and they're using another support card, like an actual good support card, right? That change makes the meta interesting to me. Because as the meta stands, the best unit is just the newest event unit. And once they made that Corsair change, I stopped caring about tier lists. I stopped wanting to really make tier lists. In all honesty, I don't know when that change was, but I made a couple tier lists after that. And since then, nothing has changed. Event units are the best units in this game. And the best event unit, is the newest event unit. It's Treant, Bard, Riding Hood, Genie, Spirit Master. In any order that you want. And I feel like a lot of people, when they want a tier list, they're like, oh, but which one is the best? And I'm just like, it doesn't matter. Because they're all good. Treant. And then some Bard player will be like, no, Bard's the best. Treant's trash. Bard is the best. Treant is garbage. And it's like, okay, sure. It's second best. And they're like, no, Genie is better than Bard. Bard is terrible. Bard is trash. Genie is the best. It's like, okay, sure. And then somebody will be like, no, Spirit Master is the best. Spirit Master beats everything with the Necromancer, Crystalmancer. It's so good. And I'm like, okay, sure. And that's basically what the discourse sounds like. And it's like, I don't feel like making a tier list, because in any order that you feel like putting those cards in, you're correct. But they're all the best. Because everything else in comparison is not great. Because Rush Royale has specifically made it so that they're not great. Bruiser, they didn't change the actual thing that most people were complaining about. They just gave Awakening Rage a damage buff or something like that. They didn't change the sleep, they didn't change the functionality of how a Bruiser works. Monk, they've nerfed. Monk is good, but do you remember the Monk meta? When Tranquility it was like Tranquility, it was Illumination used to be 100%, and it used to always upgrade the lowest monk on your board. And then they changed it to it's random. Then they changed it to it's random and it's 50%. It's a random monk and it's 50%. Illumination used to be the meta, because Illumination used to be combined with upgrades. So you used to be able to upgrade. I think it used to be you could upgrade and you would upgrade a unit and you would get protection. You would get a protection bubble, and they had to completely change that to make it two separate things. So like they changed Monk's functionality, Monk's basic functionality. They've changed Demon Hunter to where Demon Hunter isn't as great as it once was. They changed Inquisitor, and even though they gave it a buff, it still doesn't matter. Inquisitor Clock is still the best version of an Inquisitor deck. So the damage on an Inquisitor doesn't really matter. It's just whether or not you have a base level, like a high base level clock and maybe a Zeus, so that you can upgrade your Inquisitor all the time and your clocks all the time. But like beyond that, everything else is not great. And those event units in any of those 5 orders are basically the best units. And it's not even like Toxic is really like in that rock, paper, scissors. It's kind of in that rock, paper, scissors. But that's why Toxic decks have stopped running the Toxic Sea Dog. They don't run the Toxic Sea Dog, or Sea Dog is the best version of a person with a toxic deck, but you also have to max out an entire toxic deck for it to even be kind of good. So the only time you're ever going to face a full toxic deck is if you're facing full, like Riding Hood decks and Treant decks and Spirit Master decks. In any lower form of play, you're never going to face that. Like, unless you get like 5,000, 6,000 crit, you're never going to face a true toxic deck. And so, like, with all of these changes and all of these non-changes, these changes but non-changes, I haven't had any urgency to create content talking about this game that feels like it hasn't really changed. And they're solidifying what they want this game to be. The fact that 1K or less crit players can be in 7K trophies also makes you question, when you join a clan, who is actually good in this clan. You could see like a whole bunch of people being in 8K trophies, 7K trophies, but then they have like 1,000 crit, 1,200 crit, 785 crit. And these are people in like 8K trophies. And it's gotten to the point where you don't really need to raise your crit to be a good player in this game. In fact, and another thing as a content creator person, in fact, if you have high crit and you don't have a high level deck, which is very possible, I'll show you my account. If you have high crit and you don't have like a Max Zeus, a Max Fortuna, a Max Necromancer. You're just going to be facing against those cards, and your journey is just going to be entirely more difficult for basically no reason. People that didn't spend any money in this game are now being rewarded by being able to get maximum rewards in PvP, and essentially they're able to beat the game. All of this can change. All of this can change very easily. All of this can change with the next update. But I don't think that an update is coming anytime soon. They haven't even announced 27.0, and even when they announce 27.0, it'll be in the next month. 26.0 has come and gone. 26.1 has come and gone. They just announced Random League, and they're changing star coins. So if you've been following the star coin fiasco, they took out Book of Secrets, and they put in star coins. But then you realize that you can only upgrade up to a level 9 thing to a level 10. You can upgrade a 7, an 8, a 9, and then a 9 to a 10, and that's it. It took 10 star coins, which people thought was ridiculous, because at max you were getting 2 star coins when they introduced it, at which point they changed it for the next Random League so that you get more star coins, and then now that it's the next one after that one, they're saying, actually, we're going to take out the star coins, and we're doing something else. There's a part of me that feels like they're going to implement star coins in some other way, that you're going to get it in some other way, and then you might be able to maybe combine star coins and create like a super star coin where it goes from 10 to 14, and then if you have enough super star coins, you can get the ultra rare mega star coin, and like you can then upgrade anything to 15. Like you can upgrade from a 14 to a 15 maybe. I feel like that's what they might change it to, and that'll become like the new Book of Secrets, like some like additive like version of a star coin. Like if you have 2 star coins, and then if you have 3 mega star coins, you get an ultra rare mega star coin you can upgrade it something that's a 14 to a 15, or from a 11 to a 15 or so. I don't know how they're going to do it. This is all speculation. But that's not really a change either. And like, I don't know if you guys were thinking about me talking about crystals, but that's not really a change either. I'm talking about the true state of the game. Like, what is the game day to day? And what the game is day to day is trying to fight PvP, trying to be better in PvP. And when you have like 800k crit players getting to 7k trophies, and realizing that there's nothing in higher than 7k trophies to aspire to get to, and somebody with 700 crit can get to 7k trophies, and somebody like me with 5,000 crit struggles from the start of a season to 7k trophies because every single battle is with like 6,000, 7,000k crit players. It's very frustrating. It's very frustrating that I am actually being punished for upgrading my cards and gaining cards and playing the game. I'm being punished for playing the game the way that it was intended for years because of matchmaking. Matchmaking and raising your crit, the entire idea of it was to make your 4K to 6K journey much easier. You could just run through players because you've earned that, because you have higher crit, because you've invested money into this game. You've invested time into this game. And now with people that are at like 700 crit players, people with like a level 7, level 8 Treant, getting to 8k trophies, it's kind of frustrating. It's kind of frustrating that it took me forever to get to 7k trophies. And I basically had to like game the system where every single one of my matches were either against players that I knew I was going to beat or players that I knew I was definitely not going to beat. And that wasn't really what fighting before was. It always felt like you kind of had a chance. And it always kind of felt like, even though it was frustrating to go up against somebody that was a little bit higher crit than you, but they had the same trophies as you, like, you always kind of felt like you had a chance. And the way that the system is set up now, I'm playing against people at 5,000 crit. I'm playing against like max, Zeus decks with 6K, 6,500K crit. Or I'm playing against Boreas, Crystal Mancer Engineer decks that have 2,000 crit. It's weird. In terms of like the content and like why I haven't made content, it's because nothing's really changed. And I like talking about change in this game. And now that they've gotten rid of the idea of balancing this game so that older units are now good and maybe good units are equal to old units, now that they don't care about even doing that and they just want event units to be the best, there's no real reason to do a tier list because they're not updating anything. They're not changing Demon Hunter. They're not really changing Inquisitor. They're not changing Monk. They're not changing Bruiser. I mean, they kind of upgraded Blade Dancer. It's still kind of bad. It doesn't change it from being where it was because for the most part, most people ask the same question. Will Blade Dancer beat Treant? Will Bruiser beat Treant? Will Monk beat Treant? Right? Because that's the best thing. And the answer to that is always no. Because the game doesn't want you to. The game wants Treant and other event units to be the best units. Yeah, they could have like a level 7 Treant and you could have a level 15 Blade Dancer and sure, you'll beat it. But 9 times out of 10, you're not supposed to. And it makes making a tier list or talking about changes that they're making in this game kind of difficult when the changes that they're making in this game are not affecting this game. Archer has, instead of 100 damage per arrow, it has 130 damage per arrow. Oh, we're gonna nerf Treant. So instead of 0.4% damage, it now has 0.3% damage. Like, I struggle to make a video about that, about the nerf to Treant, right? Oh, and I could have, and I thought about it. I thought of making a shorts video about it. I was thinking about making a shorts video about all the nerfs to Treant, and then going into leaderboards and showing you like every single person has a Treant deck. And they're all still running Treant, doesn't matter. I want to make content about this game. But it's very hard when this game is the same. It's like settled into where it is right now. You have people that are at 800% crit at 7K trophies, because that's fine. So anybody can be in 7K trophies, it doesn't matter. All of 5 of the event units are the best units in any order that you want. Random League is once a month now. And so that is so normalized that it doesn't even really feel special anymore. I know that they keep trying to make it like this special thing. Like, oh, Random League is back. It's like, okay, yeah. Like, oh, Mirror Match is back. Oh, isn't that crazy? Mirror Match is back. Oh, Royal Trials is back. Oh, like, shouldn't we be like praising that as well? Like, why is Random League any different? It's now a 2-day event. If anything, it should have less fanfare than like a Mirror Match that lasts for 4 days, right? Like, the fact that Random League is supposed to be this like super cool event, it's not super cool anymore because it's every month. When you have something in excess, it becomes less cool. When they first started Random League and it was like this really cool, like, separate event, it was a very cool separate event because it lasted for days. And now that it's 2 days, Dragon Rift lasts longer than that. Tournament sometimes lasts longer than that. That's not an event. Like, an event is like, you know, like an event. Like a Treant event. Like a 3-day, 4-day, 5-day Treant event. Random League is like a blip on the radar now, and that's supposed to be like the thing that they're promoting the most. And so, like, they keep rotating out like cards that you can't use, and part of me understands that. Like, they want you to make different decks. They want you to deck build different ways. They don't want you to use like the best cards. They want you to use the second best cards. But that also kind of feels like, you know, the 5 best units in whatever order you want. Treant, Bard, Spirit Master, Riding Hood, Genie. Oh, you can't use Treant and Bard. It's like, okay, well, I'll use Spirit Master, Genie, and Riding Hood. Oh, you can't use Spirit Master and Riding Hood. Okay. I'll use Treant and, you know, like, like, I get, like, why they think that that's, like, an interesting play style. Like, oh, you can't use these cards. It's like, okay, well, I'll just use the second best card. There is still, like, the 5 definitive decks that everybody's going to make. That doesn't change anything. It just changes what you decide to use. It's like, it doesn't do as much as they think that it's doing. And so that's also just another thing that's like not really that interesting to talk about. I like when they make like grand changes in this game. And so far, like, the Death Wave, and like the biggest change that they made in 26.1 was Death Waves. The Death Wave change and adding more mana so that you get more mana in Death Wave. But that also just kind of felt like that should have been in place in the first place. That doesn't feel like a bonus. That feels like oh, we made a mistake. Let's do the thing that we intended to do originally. Like, that's just, oh, okay, well, yeah, the rounds go faster. Why didn't you add more mana? If the rounds are now every 30 seconds, why didn't you add more mana? Why wasn't this always a thing? And so, like, and that was like the biggest change in 26.0 and 26.1. Death Waves, and then the Death Wave changed to mana. And it's just like, it's not really a change. It's kind of a change because it makes the game shorter, but it's still the same PvP. Basically. It's just now shorter. Instead of doing like these 40 billion, 80 billion damage games, now you have minutes that you're trying to achieve. You have like a 5-minute game, a 3-minute Death Wave game, a 4-minute Death Wave game. And that's your new 80, I did 80 billion damage. So yeah, like if it feels like I haven't made a lot of content, it's because I haven't. And it's because the game is it's kind of the same. And even though there have been changes, there haven't been changes worth talking about. Like, the meta hasn't changed. The best cards haven't changed. Balance changes haven't changed anything. Dragon Rift is still the same. Mirror Match is kind of still the same. Like, you get to change, you get to add your own like equipment, which I think is cool. I think that was a much needed change. But that's basically also still the same. Royal Trials is still the same. Like, Rush for Glory is still the same. Nothing has really changed, even though it feels like they have changed things. I hope that 27.0 brings something. I hope 27.0, like, this is something that they'll never do. And it's something that I wish that they would do. But they won't. I wish that everything that wasn't an event legendary could have a chance to beat an event legendary. And the reason why they won't do that is because they want you to spend money and buy the pass for all of the events. And I'm talking about like the Royal Trials Rush for Glory mirror match events so that you can farm event units. And so if I had any advice to give you in this long video, my advice would just be pour all of your money into investing into Treant, because Treant's the best unit. It dodges toxic, and it'll keep you alive for a very long period of time. Don't upgrade your cards. Don't upgrade your crit. Wherever your crit is right now, don't upgrade your crit. Don't make the game any harder for you. Invest into Treant in whichever way you want to. You can do it free to play. You can do it like pay to play. And that's pretty much it. Because once you can get to 7K trophies, you're basically done in this game. That's it. There's nothing beyond that. If you can get to 7K trophies right now, until they change something, that's pretty much it.